Let's go to Justin in Colorado Springs. What's up, J Money? How we doing?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Of course. What's up?
Well, I've got a kind of a life decision I need to make that's causing me a lot of anxiety. My oldest child is showing early signs of depression that I'm really concerned will eventually escalate to something life-threatening. We think that moving a couple hours north near family and cousins that he has a close relationship will help a lot. But I'm in this anxious situation where it doesn't matter if I decide to move or to stay. I have so much anxiety that I can't seem to function. I've lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, and I've taken a few days off of work because I just couldn't get myself to work. And I'm not sure what to do.
Before you do anything else, you have to commit to go getting Justin well, because you're not. And you haven't been for a long time, have you?
No, it's been a long road.
It's been a long time. I am very hesitant to tell you what I'm about to tell you, okay? Because it's not always causal. And I have no intention of heaping guilt or anything like that on you. Are you in a place where I can be super honest with you?
Yeah.
How old's your kid?
He is 15.
Tell me about this stuff he's experiencing. Because you hinted at he's on the path to dying by suicide. So, like, walk me through where he is at, where he's come. What's kind of the origin story here?
Go back in time. Last year, he was in 8th grade, middle school. He about the into the end of the first quarter of this school year. We noticed that his grades started slipping, and they took a very steep trajectory down to just not passing in just about all of his grades. We talked to him, and he was very complacent. He didn't really care. When he has a lot of work to do, he gets overwhelmed. And like, for example, on a Saturday, he was doing a math worksheet that was just front and back, maybe 16 questions, and he was working on it for 6 hours. But it took him that long because he was just frozen. He couldn't handle it. And we eventually got some help. We got him a life coach. We started having very strict consequences for not getting homework done, and he has eventually gotten himself together. He's gotten good grades, and that's because we're on him all the time. He doesn't take responsibility for it. He doesn't. He's still in that state. If we were to let up, he would go back to it.
Okay, I just got to jump in here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
This is a hard conversation to have because we're not in person. I don't like having this over the phone, okay? I just need to say that up front. Because if you could see my body language, it's going to be very different than what you're going to experience on the phone, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you literally just called me explaining how you are paralyzed and frozen with a decision to make. And my guess is that's been the course of action. And so in many ways, your son is just simply operating with the set of operating instructions he's had in front of him his whole life. And you're exactly right. When I found out that straight A's can be a trauma response too, I was set free. Because that's how I've handled it. I don't have 2 PhDs because I'm that smart. I have it because I was that broken and insecure that I kept chasing and chasing something so that somebody would tell me I had value. And so the question here isn't life coach and you stupid, lazy little boy, and I can't freaking believe you. The response is sitting on the bed with him and saying, bro, me too. My whole life, me too.
We've tried to help in a very loving way. It hasn't been like, you're stupid.
I know, yeah. I know. But he'll hear you. But more importantly than hear you, he'll watch you and he will feel you. And that's why I tell you before anything here, I mean, obviously he's got to make his bed. He's got to turn his grades in. He's got to turn his stuff in. I'm not saying for a not accountable home. But I'm going to tell you, my home changed. Some of these problems that I was reading books about and calling my colleagues all across the country, some of the best experts in the world on some of these problems, evaporated when I went and did the counseling work that I needed to do. That is not true for everybody. That's why I don't like saying it, because it's not causal. I can't point every kid who's struggling with depression in the world because their parents have whatever. But the way you're laying this out for me sounds very similar. How long have you struggled with this? How long have you wrestled with things being kind of low, just kind of dysthymic, kind of anxious?
It's been forever. Okay. We've been married 16 years, and it's definitely been for all of that.
Where did you pick that up? Where did you pick up that you were only as good as your report card?
I think I picked it up from my own childhood. We always had the standard that we don't fail in school. We don't do that. We work hard. In my childhood, our parents divorced, and it was a fairly ugly divorce. No abuse, but emotionally not.
I'm going to just invent a map here that you and I would have to spend weeks together to fully flesh out. But here's a story I can make up real quick. There's a nasty, gnarly divorce. And by the way, I want to separate we don't fail from we work really hard. That ideal has got us where we are as a culture, because we have a whole bunch of people that are terrified and puckered up to fail, which means nobody's going all in. Because everything's about the grade at the piece of paper, not about the effort and the let's just go solve this problem. And we're going to make some mistakes along the way. Companies that celebrate failure do better than companies that celebrate how shiny the exterior of the building is. So I'm going to imagine you as a 9-year-old little kid or a 7-year-old little kid who had one job, and that was to figure out how you could fix mom and dad. And the way you kept every adult in your life happy was getting a grade. And suddenly you outsourced your sense of well-being by a performance standard, a scorecard. And then that scorecard becomes your child. And if your child behaves and your child does well, then you are doing good. And if your child drops the ball in the Little League game and your child doesn't get grades X and your child falls off a map, then you're failing as a parent. That's your grade as an F, and you will work really hard. Does that ring a bell? I'm just making that up. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I was also always the peacekeeper in the home as a kid.
That's right.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to go do the scary, terrifying, and I've been there, it's hard work of sitting with a counselor and asking yourself and walking through with somebody, oh man, it wasn't me that was so unlovable this whole time. Because what you as a guy who's worked with adolescents my entire career, when you told me about your son's performance falling up a map, I instantly went to one of a few things. He found drugs. His body is shutting itself down because he cannot keep up with this performance standard. He doesn't know how to make you happy. Or number 3, he is disconnected, completely unplugged. He has no one to plug into.
I would say it's number 3. I don't think that we have such high standards that he's just overwhelmed by it. I think that...
No. Not standards. Let me say it. My expectation for my kid, my son, my expectation for him is that he work really hard with the machinery and the wiring and the resources he was just dropped into planet Earth with. And he happened to have won the cosmic lottery, and he was born to 2 parents who are still married, who love each other, who work really hard, who treat each other with respect, and who both have multiple graduate degrees. And one of his parents was an expert in teaching kids how to develop cognitively. And then he ended up with another parent that was an expert in taking adolescents through. And so I've got very high excellence standards because of. So I could care less about his grades, but he's going to work really hard. And I know if he works really hard, the grades will more than take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But that's different than you will get an A. And all of that has to be anchored into, I love you so much. I'm with you. And most of that has come from me taking him to breakfast once a week for the last few years saying, dude, when I was your age, I screwed this up here. And here's what I did at work the other day that I wish I could have back. Does that make sense? And so whether you move or not, how do you think this move is going to solve all of this?
He doesn't have any friends. He's very close to his cousins, and the move would put him in the same school with his cousins. It would help him with some social skills, and the school is significantly better. It's a smaller school. It's highly rated. I think it'd be a good fit for him. So I think it would help him with the social aspect.
But you don't want to do this, or you can't do this. Why?
I think it's because of some of my own struggles in the past. We moved to our current area because we noticed that every time we moved for a job, and by the way, it took me 10 years to get into a career. I failed out of college several times, but I eventually did graduate, and I work as a software engineer now. But we noticed every time we moved, our mortgage would get more expenses, our living expenses would go up, and so we decided we're going to buy a house that we're comfortable in, a good area, and we're going to raise our kids the rest of their lives in this area. Not only that, but I felt comfortable here. I felt like the house was comfortable. I felt like our life was comfortable. My career was comfortable. So I spent the last 10, 15 years being frozen in fear a lot of times and unable to provide for my family. Not unable to provide, but struggled to provide. And I feel like this move is going to upend all of that. Like for example, moving up a couple hours up north is going to cause like a 40% increase in our mortgage. And we're going to be right back into that financially unstable situation again.
And here's it. All this tells me that you're not okay. What you've done is you've created an entire life around avoidance.
Yeah.
And I am all about, if you have an opportunity, your kid's getting bullied, your kid is in a toxic school, which those do exist, and you have the opportunity to move them to a safer place, great. You have the opportunity to move them over into another school or whatever. I'm all about that. That's fine.
I think it would be really good.
Millions of people don't have that option, but that's great. But what you're going to do is you're going to continue to reinforce that out there somewhere is where everything is okay. And that's not where healing from anxiety comes. That's not where healing from depression comes. That's not where any sort of relational healing comes from. None of that is extrinsic. That's not true. If you're being abused or you're in abject poverty or you're being bullied on a daily basis, yes, a change of environment is powerful and huge and important. But you haven't healed. You've just created a place where you can bubble wrap yourself.
Where I'm currently at?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been to counseling and done all that stuff for years?
No, this anxiety got so bad that I finally did just in the last month or so. And his first feedback was I probably have chronic depression.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But there's no way I'm going to diagnose you on this thing. But sounds like you've got some significant work to do. And let me tell you this on the other side, okay? Can I give you I want to shine a big bright light of hope, okay?
All right.
I'm a mess in all the best kind of ways, I hope. Kelly right now is waving her hand at me like I'm a lot to work with, and I know that, okay? But on most days, not all of them, most days I just fall asleep when I get home because I'm tired. And on most days, not all days, my kids come tackle me when I walk in the door. And on most days, my wife and I's marriage is pretty good. Not always. We have seasons when it's tough and we get off track and we have to walk back on the track again. But I'm 100% confident that if my boss came in tomorrow and just said, show's over, you're fired, man, I would be low. I would be sad because I like this. I like being able to sit with people. And I like all the people I get to work with. And then in a few weeks, it would be on to the next. And I'd be sad and I'd be angry, but I wouldn't be anxious and I wouldn't fall off a cliff into a black hole again. You see the difference?
Yeah.
But that has
Go.
only come from a bunch of hard work with a therapist and a bunch of hard work with how I move and how I eat and all that stuff that I didn't want to deal with, but it's reality.
Sounds like you have good confidence that you could recover, and I don't know that I have that confidence.
That's right. And I promise you, I did not have that before we started this adventure. And so the reason I'm telling you, the hope is there. I'm on the other side of it. Actually, I'm not on the other side of it every day. I just make some choices. It's like having bad breath, man. I brush my teeth twice a day, so I don't have bad breath. It'll come back in 2 days if I don't deal with it. And what you've got to do is get those skills, deal with the stuff in the past, let your body rest finally, and then begin to just build it out. Whenever somebody tells me that their kid is struggling inside their own home, my question is always, how's your marriage? My question is always, how are your finances and your stress in your home? How are you? Because so often, not always, but so often our kids take their cues from us. And I love you enough to tell you, you got to go do that hard work. So wherever you end up moving, by the way, I think I wouldn't buy a house then. Maybe for the next few years you rent. And if that makes your heart start racing, I can't breathe, and then we're going to go deal with that. We're going to head straight into that storm. But if your counselor immediately identified, whoa, you've been carrying some bricks for a long time, brother, and your body has been running low for a long time, let's go straight into that. Let's jump straight into that. And let's be really honest and vulnerable with our son. Hey, son, I've been dealing with chronic anxiety for years, and I didn't even know it. And I think you've picked that up from me. And we have some very special attributes that the rest of the community doesn't have, and our bodies are pretty sensitive to the signals in our world. I'm getting after it. I'm going to go work on it. I hope you'll come with me. You got to make your bed, and you still got to turn your homework in. Still going to hold you accountable. But we've got a hard path ahead of us, and I'm going first. And when your kid has a ringside seat to, oh, that's what a dad going on a healing adventure looks like, then you give him a roadmap, and may not follow you right away, but he'll always know. I know a path. I know a path out of here. I know a path out of here because my old man took that first step. Hang on the line. I'm going to send you Building a Non-Anxious Life, new book, because it's going to give you a path. And I'm also going to hook you up with 6 months of BetterHelp for free. I know you're in a therapist at home, but I want you to have an option that you can call, you can text, that you have somebody else that you can reach out to. Please continue seeing that counselor and do the hard work. You're worth it. Your whole household is worth it. Figure out the move later. Let's start getting well now.